Yeah. So yeah, that was the other thing. Like, I'm really upset that I didn't come up with sooner Mike's contribution last time of a vape that you could take cover behind. Like
deployable vape.
Right, deployable. Yeah, like I don't know, like something on a global agenda.
Correct.
Why do I?
Oh my god, that's a game.
I can hear I can hear myself because muted.
Who was that again? Right. That wasn't Nexon. Like, who was those? They made a bunch of games like that. Yeah.
High Res.
You know what they went on? High Res Studios. Yeah.
Mike, which my friend was playing today.
And something else.
Tribes. Ascend.
Yes, Tribes Ascend. Mm-hmm. Correct.
Yep. I guess people still play that, but I mean, years and years ago, I had like one big.
I thought they closed the servers for that.
It's delisted from Steam, but that's I think all the servers are either still maintained or like third party maintained.
Bless.
Whatever the fuck you call that.
I thought High Res was dead too. Game. So fair enough.
But yeah, this is a gaming podcast, by the way, guys.
Correct.
We're talking about games for the next 20 hours. So yeah. All right, whoever that is on thin ice, but they can. I know it's me, but they got a Wu-Tang avatar, so I mean.
Oh, that means they're welcome
right,
here.
Yeah. Because it's a music show too, obviously. Yeah. So I sound all right, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna turn myself up, and I don't know why I'm larger. We will do our usual deal, like so. What's one that shrinks that displays us both, but now. The first one. Tremendous. No, that looks stupid. Maybe it doesn't, because we got the PS2 splash loader background behind us.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I think people can accept half the
very cyberpunk.
It's in order to get that. Whatever FPS you want it to be.
3.
Yeah.
Since it's a video gaming podcast,
the human eye is
incapable of seeing faster than 60 FPS. So,
right.
It's no fact.
It was 35 in 2008, but
yes.
Humans have evolved.
Correct.
Obviously, there's no other possible explanation for that. Yeah, what's going on, guys? Welcome to Broken Gears Airsoft, the podcast. This is going to be one that's formatted from the get-go to be uploaded re-uploaded in audio form later, so we can actually really get this show on the road. Tom, are you still there? It looks like you just lagged out. Tremendous. Our second viewer crashed the entire operation.
Hello?
You're dipping it out. You good now? Okay, you're good now. All right.
Weird.
Yeah. Jokes aside, you should run an Ethernet cable straight to that fucking.
I guess I should. Yeah, I don't know. I usually don't have connection issues down here, so.
No, maybe it was. I'm getting these constant fucking. Oh, it seems like one of your streams is having connection issues.
Yeah.
I look at the after action report, which even the free version of Restream gives you like all your connection stats, 10 bars, whatever the max is, like 95% of the time, and it dips down a little bit. So I don't know what the deal with that is, but it's
weird.
I don't actually think it's anything on your end at the same time. What's going on, everybody? So all one viewer, we got up to 2. That was like a 200% increase. So there's that. Tonight is a pretty straightforward one. This was, I believe, an idea Mike originally pitched to me, which I absolutely loved, because it's also a topic that comes up a lot on the... It's getting staticky as the day is long on your end, Haas. I can turn you down while I'm giving my spiel. It's cool.
I'm not saying anything, so I don't know where that would be coming from, but fair enough.
Yeah, it's like a sizzling. Nothing like reasonably loud is cranking down.
No.
Jiggle the cord of your headset.
Hello?
No, where it's plugged in to your machine.
Yeah, there is like a low level. I can see like a little. It's still green on the screen there. Yeah, like it isn't completely quiet.
Yeah, it's hearing you fine, but it's plugged.
Yeah, it is picking up something. I don't.
Yeah, you just cut out.
How about now? That better?
You sound a little different, but the sound is gone. Would you turn on echo cancellation or something?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I have that and noise suppression on by default. And
okay. Do I sound all right?
Yeah, oh yeah, fine. Again,
Okay, cool.
we're not.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I just turned
recording
both those on,
after.
so that seemed to get rid of that little hanging
It's
thing,
eradicated. Yeah. So cool. A plus. So yeah, as I said, guys, it's going to be a pretty straightforward one tonight. This was an idea Mike originally pitched to me a while ago, just sort of as an aside when we were coming up with topics. And yeah, I thought it was awesome, and we're finally covering it as we close in on our double-digit podcast. Pistols, handguns, gun handing services, hand cannons, whatever term you prefer. They're a thing. I think they're more of a thing, less of a thing rather than people make them out to be, depending on how you're using them, where and when. And this is sort of an open discussion thereon. So it might be easier to format as more of a debate, though. So, Tom, where do you stand on the issue? My whole bit here tonight is that, okay, if you're on any kind of budget, my thesis, if you will, if you're on any kind of meaningful budget, you cut out again. What the fuck is going on today?
Christ almighty, yeah, what's going on with this?
Yeah, are you like at any point seeing your network connection drop because something is?
No.
Yeah, I'm on Wi-Fi on my end too, but this has never been a problem for 10 shows. Anyway, where did I cut out on your end? I'm sorry.
Pistols, if you're on anything of a budget.
Yes. Oh, okay. So you heard like right up until the end. All right.
Yeah.
So my whole sort of thesis tonight is that if you're on anything approximating a budget, you probably don't need them quite as soon in a given, in the context of a given loadout you're putting together, as some might convince you do, or as some might, or as you might think that you need. This is worded horribly already, but short story long, they don't play the role in an airsofting loadout they do in a real steel loadout, or even the Call of the Duty. So yeah, why don't we open the floor at that point? We've generally just sort of explored, what to buy when in all different ways, albeit tangentially, most in a lot of prior shows. But yeah, let's approach from that angle a little further. When if we're putting a loadout together, whether it's our first one or third one, whatever, at what point are we looking at pistols?
I guess it really, I mean, I'm trying to think of why. So like you made a good comparison. It's like to why they're issued in real life. So I mean, for example, they're issued to people that
Hey, John's here, part of the show. Welcome.
They're issued for to people for a number of reasons. In real life, they could be issued to people that probably aren't going to need to shoot ever. Really, people like high-ranking officers, really rear echelon people like mechanics, things like that wouldn't really be expecting to see any combat, but still need to have some kind of gun. And then you could also be issuing them, and this is where I think it gets a little bit more relevant to airsoft. You would also issue them to people that are potentially carrying something that's a little bit too bulky to be used easily in close quarters, like 240 gunners. Even sometimes like saw gunners will be issued a sidearm. DMRs, snipers will typically carry around a sidearm, just in case you need to have something that's for really close quarters. Artillery crewmen, vehicle drivers, although oftentimes those guys will get issued something like a carbine or like an AR, just a normal M4, things like that as well. From an airsoft context, I would argue that where the pistol comes in entirely depends on what you're doing. If your first thing is that, like you said, you're on a budget, you're just getting into the game, you don't really know what you want to do yet, you're going to just start off as a rifleman, buy some AEG that you think looks cool, and go from there. You're right. You probably don't really need to be thinking about a sidearm. The first thing you should probably look at is getting your primary squared away. For me, when I'm doing like just a basic rifleman loadout, the pistol really never comes into play from a practical perspective. I've had arguments with people who would argue that they become relevant if your primary goes down. To me, I don't really know that it's like that's that much of a if that's that much of a concern to you, like your life is not at stake here. It's an airsoft game. So I mean, like worst case scenario, your primary goes down, you just call hit, go back and deal with whatever the break is, and then move on. Like not that much of an issue.
It's a great opportunity to go vape in the parking lot for a while, as we covered in April.
Of course, or just leave the field, as like 90% of people do with their gun spray.
Right,
but that's beside the point.
a $40 event. Why would you want lunch out of it? So, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, so I don't really personally, I mean, again, I can certainly see an argument for that. I don't really know that that's worth could be close to $200 that you might end up spending for a sidearm, a couple of magazines, or if it's even really worth, like, because it's not nothing to carry one around. I mean, you need to get a good holster. That's additional cost. That's also more shit that's flopping around on your belt. You might need a pistol belt, or if you're not using a pistol belt, that's going to take up molly real estate on your chest rig, things like that. So, I mean, it's definitely not nothing to consider. Of course, there is the cool factor of having one, which is this is airsoft. We're just playing dress up, so that's certainly a relevant factor if you want to look neat. And they are fun, which I can't argue with either. But again, coming back to what you're doing, if you're beyond that point, actually, I'm sorry. I'll walk it back just a little bit. As a player just getting into the game, the one time where I could see the sidearm being particularly relevant, and this is more of a thing, as I've noticed it being more of a thing as time goes on, there are, like, for example, one of our local fields, there's an area of the field where only sidearms can be used. You have to actually transition from your primary to a secondary weapon, either a shotgun or a pistol, and you're only allowed to use that in that section of the field. It's like a little CQB area.
Right.
That could certainly be relevant. If you're running a gun that has a minimum engagement distance, that is also, and that's where I was kind of getting into, like, moving beyond just the basic player, because if you're just getting started, you really shouldn't be having a gun shooting hot like that. But if you are a machine gunner or a sniper or a DMR that's running a gun that has an MED, you should definitely consider a sidearm. Some fields will actually require that you carry a sidearm if you have a weapon with an MED. The ones that don't, I find that people are a lot more likely to violate their MED if they're not carrying a sidearm, because suddenly that 75-foot distance is like, well, the guy's close, and otherwise I'm just straight up not allowed to shoot him, so I'm just gonna play it that he's 76 feet away instead of 70 feet away, something like that. So yeah, that's a good case for it. I don't know. That's my take on it.
I say one thing I don't think you touched on, which I agree with pretty much all of that, but one thing that I remember coming up on one of the Facebook forums a while ago, where obviously all intellectual pinnacles begin, is that whether you have a field that is what's called smart and cares about running an event that's even remotely interesting and has an area where things like unmodified tri-shots and reasonably chronoed pistols are the only things allowed in an area, even if you're not talking in that context. Clearing buildings, they definitely do have a practical. We talked about the coolness factor of them. They are, they have their role to play in a lot of different AOs and a lot of different setups. But it's if it's a disproportionately split between that amount of practical purpose, if the ratio of them being jewelry and them being practical is offset a little, I would say it's probably erring on the former side more than people think. That's sort of my deal tonight. Yeah, Squab, we talk, it's kind of an airsoft talk show.
We're pretty good at that.
If at this point you just don't have the attention span for it, we do understand. So again, but yeah, where was I going with that? So yeah, it's one guy made a great point about clearing rooms and other points where they do have a real role to play. But as I said, my whole thing tonight is that a lot of times I think they're largely jewelry, and for reasons like, I mean, whether you're running a drop leg or a pistol belt, or as you said, molly on your chest rig. I mean, wherever you are sticking this gun on yourself, I mean, lest we explore that mental image further. How much harder is it to just carry a couple extra mid caps for your primary? There was a thread on I think the Airsoft Beginners Facebook groups, which are generally full of pretty reasonable people. Some, it was yet another. What's the best? Was that the upgradability? What's the best pistol with a decent amount of upgradability or something? It was what best pistol Gunzors post, which is fine. I mean, people are not everyone's we're all coming into this at a certain different experience level, and some less than others. I mean, I'm not even poking fun at the OP or anyone else, but I got I got some pretty good feedback when I explained that you could argue a successful case that that one potential answer is your primary, because as I said, even if you're, I mean, outside of hyper realistic games where everyone's running real weight, real caps, and full metal receivers and all this other shit, you can probably carry a couple extra. If we're talking a normal, a typical field or typical skirm somewhere. Even many more relaxed ops, and that the relaxed meaning they allow things like mid caps. I mean, you're running an AR, an AK, even some weirder platforms. As I said, there's no real situation where even carrying even the lightest, smallest pistols, outside of a couple very bespoke, boutique options, is less aggravation than a couple more reloads for your main gun.
Yeah, I would.
You've brought up some other good points
agree
where if you're
more.
running a primary that might not be able to be used, even whether it's easily or legally in the context of the field rules, everywhere you want to engage. But I mean, that's a play style issue. Why are you knocking doors over in anything but a worst case, kicking doors in rather? When you don't absolutely have to if you're running around with a sniper.
Sure. Yeah, no, can't argue with that.
I say if you got an MP5K up your ass too, I mean, full send, but. And so
that's an option.
Tool for every job sort of situation.
My first thought is Ross, who's one of my teammates, who's our machine gunner, big weapons guy, like carries around, the large guns, that kind of thing. There are, because you're right. I mean, partially that is a play style issue. The other half of it is if you're playing on a team and you all do need to go into a building. I mean, it's relevant to not have no firepower whatsoever. I would, in those cases, I would sort of agree that a firearm is kind of a requirement for something like that if you're running a big machine gun loadout. But if, like the case you just described, where it's a new player coming in and saying, okay, what do I need in terms of pistols? The answer is strongly that you do not. You do not need anything in terms of pistols. A pistol is so far from a requirement for a basic loadout. Saving again, like maybe certain fields where it is like something pretty important, where like there's a whole area that you might not be able to go into with your primary, in which case I would maybe even just consider something like a little spring pistol, shove it in a pocket, just so you have something to shoot BBs at the opponents in those areas.
If only to deduce that your holster works and you can make an op, you can the way you run and play, you can make it an op without losing the fucking thing, because 100%. I've traded up significantly for some pretty badass pistols. My first Mark 23 to Mike, actually, and almost lost it that same afternoon.
I think something like a Mark 23, although I mean you might disagree because you have actually carried one as a sidearm. I can sort of see an argument
carrying it in a $10 Condor holster. Let's be very clear.
I can sort of see an argument. Things like the Mark 23 are a completely different animal to me. Where like that's like, I mean, though specifically the Mark 23 has a purpose outside of just being a pistol. But yeah, anyway, that could probably be another discussion, like I said.
Right, yeah, but you're right. One of mine is upgraded. I still run it like a stock Glock. I mean, I guess it's more about keeping.
Plus, those do something different. I mean, a Mark 23 is genuinely like close to silent, which does actually provide an additional level of capability in addition to your primary, which is going to make much more noise. But yeah, no, like I was saying, if the question is, if the question to a new player coming onto Facebook, Reddit, whatever, and is like, okay, what's a good starter loadout? As like you said, people play Call of Duty, people are used to video games, people are used to looking at special forces guys that are, or guys, even just normal soldiers that are in the field that are specialists that might be carrying around pistols, and like, everybody carries around a pistol. Or SWAT guys carrying around a rifle, they also have a pistol. If you're going to be badass soldier man, you need a pistol. Not true, even a little bit. And in that case, I would completely agree that any real estate that you're dedicating to a is probably better spent with more primary mag or anything, grenades, name a piece of specialist kit, something like that. Because a pistol doesn't really do anything apart from spit BBs. Again, unless it provides some additional level of capability, like a Mark 23, which can be quiet, or if you play at a field where it allows you to go into a certain area, I'll leave them at home. I've played many a game without a pistol.
Right. It's a good point. And I guess, that's again, and parallel thinking here. That was sort of my, part of my whole bit earlier is that if if in absolutely no other context, that game you mentioned, the Call of the Duty, does get right that realistic ammo capacities. So you
That too.
obviously it's not applicable in airsoft again outside of
brings up an excellent point in the chat.
hyper realistic
Water, carry more water. Great idea.
Oh yeah, don't get us too. We'll get to that. But like, where was I going with that? Okay, so short story long, you're not. When do you pull a pistol in a shooter? When you're in I mean, unless you're just going for pistol kills or fucking around. When you're in a predicament where reloading your primary is out of the question. And in a certain sense, it doesn't. Airsoft games don't necessarily always unfold that way in terms of how quickly you can respawn and get back into the fight. So people play different and all that fun stuff. And so yeah, you're just, I mean, get what you buy what the fuck you want. But I mean,
like quite a long time at this point, and I can probably actually count like the number of times that I've genuinely needed to pull a sidearm because I would not have had an opportunity to reload otherwise, like single digits, probably.
Right. As I said, people just don't engage.
So rare. Yeah, because right. I mean, like unlike video games where it's like everything's much more condensed, you're much more mobile, you're likely to be right on top of people all the time.
You can respawn somewhere, you walk literally 40 feet and you're in the fray again.
Yeah, no chance. It happens far less frequently than would be required. I mean, given because I mean, again, it's not nothing. You're going to need to buy the pistol, probably a couple extra mags, which are not cheap on gas guns, a good holster if you want it to actually not be complete garbage to use. Then there's the additional level of maintenance associated with GBBs, which is a completely different maintenance stream from AEGs. Not completely different, but substantially different. It's a whole other line of consumables. You're going to need to get gas. I mean, if you can avoid it, I would. Frankly, I mean, I would only suggest getting a pistol if you have a legitimate use for one, or you really, 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 really like them and feel like it would complete an impression or something like that.
Not to say, but that's not to say. I mean, if people go down this rabbit hole and see there are pistols that aren't GBBs, everything you said applies to AEPs, and that's okay. GBBs are obviously, most people probably listening know that that's gas blowback. You also have automatic electric pistols, or
which I am quite fond of.
Which are, what do they call like normal ass electric pistols? There's probably not a whole lot out there, but it's a lot of AEPs probably have a semi-auto option, right?
I would just call them AEPs. Automatic automatic just applies to me. Automatic implies like the old school version of automatic, where it's like they're just not single action.
They're not breech loading like a Martini Henry. Yeah,
exactly.
Or a flintlock. Yeah,
correct.
Okay, but yeah, all that applies to AEPs. All that applies to non-blowback NBBs. Oh, I guess some pistols that I was thinking of earlier might be just called like EBBs, like certain rifles.
Yeah, well, the EBBs, like the old school classic little double A powered ones that go like ring, ring. Yeah, those.
Oh, sure. Oh, okay. Those aren't more like LPEGs.
I mean, those are more like LPEGs, but when I think of EBBs, like electronic blowback pistols, that's what I think.
Oh, is there not really, to this day, not a whole lot of folks making like upscale, like proper EBBs? Just no demand.
No.
Yeah.
Nope.
Interesting. But yeah, all that stands, and whatever kind of pistol you're diving into beyond, your, again, I say Dick's gun, but I don't think Dick's even sells this shit anymore. Probably. But your classic clear Springers.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's also definitely something to be mindful of. They'll behave if, what was that? Your chewing tobacco can?
Yes.
Is that, what was the beer of the week? Oh, Resurgence?
Resurgence Oktoberfest Lager, because they now sell Oktoberfest beers in August, because we are very far from God.
It's Buffalo. We start early. Yeah.
Yes. Every day we move further from God's light.
What did you say? We're very far from God.
Very far from God.
Oh, God.
We live in a society.
That's fine. We have airsoft. No. All the cult you could ever need. Where were we? We were talking about, maintenance. And obviously all the aggravation that's maintenance of gas guns entails.
Yes.
And so short story long, it is no joke. And don't forget that these things will go the distance if you take care of them right. But knowing how to do that and getting set up to do that is a thing.
No, and they won't if you don't. And
Yeah.
if the whole point of your sidearm is to be the thing that you use if your primary goes down and your sidearm doesn't work, you've been carrying around a couple pounds lump of metal and plastic and a bunch of extra mags and spending all that money for literally nothing. So
Right, which, as
Yeah.
Squab, friend of the show, said in the chat, you could do things like that could be that amount of weight on your body could instead have been a couple things like 2 water bottles. And
Yes.
yeah, I've never seen oh no, you can get like thigh rig mag dumps and shit, right? I'm trying to think if there's options for drop leg but water bottle holders that would actually be good. They probably make them in Kydex at this point. Yeah. So yeah, as always, guys, taking your tech guys, one viewer. We're taking your tech questions as usual, including on the topic at hand, which is a pretty firmly technical one as of these last few minutes. Sound off in the comments at will if at any point you're so inclined or watching this in the future. Feel free to tell us how bad we are doing at brokengearsairsoft.com. Broken Gears Airsoft. We don't have the domain yet. Brokengearsairsoft at gmail.com. There we fucking go.
brokengearsairsoft.edu.
Yeah, right. No, we're an educational institution. Mm-hmm. We had to shift gears as far as exactly what kind of tax scam we were going to be. Keep an eye on the video description as well. Might have a couple things updated there after the upload. John's got a few things to say. Yeah. You want me to throw his pizza in the oven for you? No, I'll eat later. I'll eat later.
Nice.
I'm doing important work. I can eat later.
God bless.
So, John, front of the show. Question: what do I buy to make a stand-in for the trank gun from Metal Gear Solid? I defer to the custom gunologist for this one. You can Google it right now. That's fine. That's obviously why you're in for.
I mean, that's literally what I'm doing, actually. Because I genuinely have no idea what the trank gun from Metal Gear Solid looks like.
Right.
I've not played the series because I'm a fucking dweeb. Oh, basically, it looks like a Liberator, which is the Liberator 45. It's a single-shot disposable pistol, which I don't think exists in Airsoft. There might be one out of Japan made by like a model gun company, but I don't know that it fires BBs, to be completely honest with you.
I never realized. Wait, those were single shot, and because I'm looking at a cutaway diagram of one. They were meant to be. Yes. They were. The grip just held 5 rounds that were then reloaded. I get it now. Okay, I never knew those were.
Well, it looks like we got a couple different options because you got. Let's see, this thing. There's a couple different tranquilizer guns in Metal Gear Solid, as it turns out. So you got one that looks like the Liberator. There's another one that could very easily be
like. See, this is. Yes. Remember, we have a screen share option, Purgatory.
Oh my god.
Okay, yeah, I never realized that those weren't. Was there another one that was literally magazine fed? That's how I always thought they were. I never saw this.
There was a cheap all stamped version of the 1911 that was intended to be cheaper. That is the easy gun from Metal Gear Solid 3, yes. But that's apparently a tranquilizer pistol. The actual tranquilizer pistol I think you might be thinking of, John, you could probably replicate pretty easily out of one of the Gemtech. Basically, it was a version. It was a fancified, modernized version of the old KJW Ruger Mark Ones, which shot like 9 million FPS. The Gemtech, or SOCOM Gear, I believe they're made by SOCOM Gear now, is like an integrally silenced. Basically, it still is a Ruger Mark One, but looks pretty close. And you could probably build one up with like a slightly more square slide.
Oh yeah, boom! So along those lines.
Yes, exactly like that. Yep. It's not perfect, but it does kind of fit the bill.
Right.
The trank gun, which I think is called the Hush Puppy in the game. Is essentially a more squared off version of that. So where there is a rounded barrel and all that jazz, it's going to have a squared off side. It looks like in the game, when it's not in its suppressed configuration in the game, it looks very much like it's based roughly off of an auto mag. Which would be very difficult to find in Airsoft, but they do exist. Marushin did make them, and they're in 8mm. Yeah. So yeah, if you want to do that, you got some options.
Right. Yeah. No, you can do very much worse with a base for base platform.
For sure.
Yeah. Where were we before that? Remind me. Well, I've done a half hour already. Half hour to go. Just overall discussing how there are, in an overwhelming majority of situations, more practical things to be strapping to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Especially depending on what the state of your loadout is. Otherwise, we talked about guns, but if you're running a heavy rig on a hot day and don't want to be ready to leave by lunchtime, let alone 2 fucking heat strokes to drive home, you might not want to have a what do some of the heavier like pistols even weigh? A couple pounds easy?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably a pound and change. Yeah, because a 3-inch slice of I-beam is like upstairs. 2 pounds and change.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No.
Yeah, I mean, with your drop, with like a proper drop leg, like a G code or something,
I'm gonna throw it out there. Just so, I mean, I guess holsters are probably an entire other discussion. I don't know if we've gotten into that at all in previous episodes. John is, for the most, in my experience, close to right. If you have a good holster, Call of Duty was kind of on point with generally it is faster to pull a sidearm than it is to reload. I'm sure you can find something on YouTube about that. But yeah, sure. By and large, drop legs are really intended for, like, you usually see cops using them. Drop legs are really intended for if you have a lot of shit already on your belt. Pretty much any person that shoots professionally or that needs to, actually even cops a lot these days, you'll notice have shifted back to just using belt holsters where at all possible. Drop legs are really a compromise. It's so you can still carry a pistol while having a large load on your waist that is not a sidearm. For the most part, they're slower to draw. In my personal experience, they're a lot more annoying to run around with. They flop around on your thigh. If you're like a skinny guy like me and you don't have a lot of like mass there, it's going to be flopping all over the place. You have to reach.
There's a very I can the second
very strap. Extremely specific use case for drop leg holsters. By and large, and they do look cool too, which is also kind of a point.
Right. Yes.
By and large, I would strongly recommend finding a good paddle holster, or something that'll fit on your waistline and a pistol belt. That's just me. But your mileage may vary. It's a holster setup's one of those things that's like very much personal preference. There's not really a right way to do it, but yeah, as an aside.
Up to a certain point. My one thing is just, as you're saying, I agree with pretty much all that. Once again, that with being thinner with drop leg holsters, there is a very narrow Goldilocks zone of that strap being tight enough that it's not flopping around everywhere, and loose enough that it's not, like, I'm not even joking, like cutting off circulation to your leg enough that it's a real problem after like a couple minutes. Yeah. So that's obviously something to be mindful of. And as you said, they're really, this isn't something you're kidding yourself out with to be in, to pull in a parking lot pistol duel, which was a real thing at the field we used to run, by the way. If you don't absolutely have to.
Right.
Again, it's sort of a last resort situation. That and you'd explain to looking at things like paddle holsters. Can you explain a little bit about what paddle holsters are? I mean,
give me 1 second. Visual aids are much better for this.
Indeed. Tremendous. We will leave both camera feeds on because this place looks like a kill house with too many lights on. It's, again, John, I'm with you a lot of the time, but I feel like there are times where it's not, i.e., a well-adjusted chest rig that fits you with a few reloads, maybe stuff some newspaper at the bottom of your mag pouches so your mags are sticking out a little faster. I mean, you're running something like an M4 with a decent weight balance and not some absurd length front end. Pop out, drop, old one in, or new one in rather. So I mean, there are times where what you're saying is true, but I'll throw your comment up just to be clear. I mean, there are absolutely times this is true, but there's times when there isn't. So yeah. Right. Again, right into parallel note. I'll leave this comment up for a bit because I think it's going to segue perfectly into our demonstration portion this evening.
All right. So, oh god. Okay, so I'm already tangled up in the drop leg because drop legs suck.
Well, this is not
So
only
this-
a drop leg, Tom. This is a universal holster, and we know
This
you know
is
how we
not a
feel about
universal
universal.
holster, actually.
Oh, okay.
This is even goofier than a universal holster.
What-
This is very much not a universal holster. This is intended to hold one very specific gun, and that is an MP7, actually. So this is a submachine gun
Okay.
holster, which is baffling. But anyway, typically drop leg holster is going to have one strap. It's going to go around your leg. Usually, the strap is usually close to your knee, depending on how long the holster is. Like this one is pretty lengthy. Usually, pretty much every drop leg I've seen is going to have a single pistol mag pouch on the front. And then there's going to be some place where it can mount to your belt. This will adjust in length depending on how far up or down your thigh you need it and where your belt
Right.
is. Some
Now,
of them
where
will
do
have
you
an additional
generally-
strap.
Right. How and where do you generally want to adjust that? I've heard a good rule of thumb is to have that fucking thing, basically whatever kind of gun you're carrying, as high as possible without it creating a problem for something else.
You're getting into the point of why you almost never want to use a drop leg holster. The idea with the drop leg holster, you're exactly correct. You want to get it as close to essentially being a hip holster as you possibly can without it actually being a hip holster, because there's going to be shit in the way.
Right.
And if you do have shit in the way, you want enough room that you can still actually draw your sidearm. Because if it's close to your leg and close to your kit, it's going to be resting right on the back strap of your pistol, and you're not going to be able to remove it from the holster, which is a problem. Yeah, so that's the size of it. Again, personal opinion, probably don't go with the drop leg. If you have the holster, if you have the belt space, use pedal holster.
Right. And we just lost Tom again. Good. Tom, if you can hear me, stand by. Your connection is stabilizing. We have obviously been hacked or something along those lines. All right,
Sorry
you're back.
about that, I guess. Yeah, where'd you lose me?
You had just gotten into paddle holsters, so I'll start from the top there.
So this is a paddle holster. This is the actual paddle component right here. The idea is that it tucks part of it will tuck inside your waist. I'm sorry, I was reading the comment there. Yes, I completely agree for the most part. Again, like I was saying before, they're really kind of a compromise. I'm not a holster specialist. This is what I've heard from people that do know what they're talking about when it comes to holsters. They're really meant for, yeah, completely correct. They flop around a lot if your pistol's heavy.
Speaking from
they're
experience,
convenient if your pistol isn't perfect and you have, like I said, a lot of shit on your belt, or you don't, if you have some other driving need to have something in a spot where a pistol would go. Yeah, more common for cops where they're not necessarily going for their gun first thing. So
right.
Yeah, for airsoft or like someone who's going to be using it regularly in combat, doesn't really make a lot of sense. Paddle holsters do make a lot more sense. They're going to be right at your hip. Part of it will go inside of your waistband, this part, and then the rest of it will be outside of your waistband, hooked onto your belt. They make ones that don't actually have like this physical part on here. Some will strap directly to a pistol belt, also a good option. Like an actual paddle holster like this one. You can mount a variety of different holsters to it. This is a hard holster. It's a Serpa. Serpas are kind of shitty, but they're okay for airsoft because you're not going to actually shoot yourself with them, like you potentially could in real life. But yeah, again, a lot of different options. You have basic cloth holsters, like universal holsters, which work. They're cheap. Like one of these, this whole setup could be approaching $60 if you get like a clone one. Something like a universal holster is probably going to run you like
significantly
$15.
less than dropping and losing a $120 pistol, from what I understand.
You nailed it.
I
exactly
stopped
right.
at math in 10th grade, but I can figure that one out.
It's an insurance policy. Like having a good pair of goggles, having a shitty holster is really going to kind of fuck up your pistol experience for the most part. So, yeah, I would not recommend going with a cheaper universal holster if you have the cash to afford something that's a little bit more expensive. Yeah, that's kind of it. I do actually, somewhere strapped to some rig, I have a cheapo, just like flap basic pistol holster, but they're a little bit slower to draw. I would use those in a situation where I would very rarely be expecting to use my sidearm, and would not be worried if it would be like a cheaper sidearm, then I might not be so worried about losing.
That makes complete sense. Yeah.
Yeah, again, strongly would recommend getting either a good pistol belt or a hard holster that mounts either to a paddle and goes in your belt, or if you're more comfortable with something like cross draws get a lot of shit, like cross draw vests and stuff like that, but that's actually not a bad spot for a pistol if you don't mind having like that taking up so much real estate on the front of your setup. Because typically where a cross draw ends up putting your pistol typically is where you want to have more mags. I personally would also want to have more mags, so your mileage may vary. But if you end up using your pistol a lot, there are chest mounted solutions like a cross draw. Some guys actually put them right here.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, so that's
Yeah, I've
obviously
seen that
retaining
somewhat
all your
frequently.
mag storage.
That seems kind of goofy to me because your draw is like potentially pointing at a target, which is kind of uncomfortable. And like your pistol, you'd be like muzzle flagging anybody that like you turned. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but that seems like a weird setup to me. But again, holsters are one of those things that are very much a personal preference where you actually want to put them. So yeah, works. Whatever works for you, do that.
Right. Yeah, and it's a matter of figuring out what works for you. I mean, if you
true enough. I would recommend
$10
like playing around with other, like if you know somebody on the field or you know somebody that has a bunch of gear already, give them an ask, let them play around, try something before just buying it sight unseen.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how small like a larger airsoft community would have to be before you really stop having people with some amount of gear that they really just want gone, let alone are open to
True enough.
loaning out for an afternoon where you're both going to be there,
Anybody that's been playing airsoft for more than like 3 or
5
4
minutes.
years is going to have so much gear that they don't want anymore that they'll almost be willing to sell it. Half the people will probably be willing to give it to you just to get it off their hands. Any other? Yeah, it was good. So we've covered why they are definitely not necessary, what situations they kind of are necessary in, what's the best way to carry them if you do find they're necessary. Do you have any other thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, you do obviously have people asking about things from the perspective of, okay, what's the best one under this budget? What's the best one under that budget? Which are often budgets that would get you like
I don't know,
easily mid-grade AEG.
It's a classic goofy ass.
Which one's most upgradable? So I don't know if we decide. Here we go. If we decide, okay, we really are, we play at a certain field that maybe does like a pistols only area, or they're just a big thing, or even just with an area with a lot of dense foliage with cool people that know, okay, no fucking shooting each other with something that's chronoing barely not hot at 10 feet away, and we're confident one way or another that we're getting our mileage out of this, and they sound like a lot of fun. Maybe we've even borrowed one for a couple games and confirmed that. Maybe we're not in a position to do so, but just still that confident. What are we looking at from where? As far as good deals, practical, are certain makes and models more practical than others for a certain loadout? What are we buying? Is a Glock pretty much a good buy for anybody?
Well, when you're talking models versus like companies to buy, I would start thinking
including brands.
Yeah,
as
companies
well.
to buy from would kind of be my first thought.
So both brands of gun and retailers.
Yeah,
the
tricky part that I'll be the first to admit here that I am not really a GBB guy. So like I buy pistols. I know people that are very, very choosy about their pistols and that they're much more like particular about how they perform and what they're expecting them to do and things like that. Personally, and maybe this is like an unpopular opinion, but I mean, for the most part, if I'm carrying a pistol, I'm not expecting it to perform anything like a primary. I've run pistols. I used to run a WE high power, which did not have a hop up. I didn't consider that a problem. I mean, like if I'm using my pistol outside of like 50 feet, that seems really optimistic to me. I don't know. That's just been my experience. So
I have
performance-wise, I don't really care. Again, if it's capable of spitting BBs with relative accuracy at like 50 feet, I'm Gucci.
Right.
In terms of reliability, that's where things can get a little weird because from what I've observed, reliability varies pretty widely amongst models within brands, which is really weird. So like WE is like generally a safe bet for the most part. But then they do make some really goofy design decisions, like not putting a hop up on the high power for whatever reason. Some of their pistols have like really weird wear patterns. Some, like the Makarov, which I ran for years, for example, there was a screw that held the barrel into the frame, just like a real Makarov. It had a fixed barrel. And that screw would loosen. They didn't bother to Loctite it. So like that screw would loosen over time, and the entire slide would actually start separating from the frame, which is like, and
Oh, hell yeah.
yeah, like that's not good. And then some are like, rock solid, like Glocks, like the WE Glocks are pretty good from what I understand. Never actually used one myself. Heard decent things about them. There's about 1,000 different brands of Glock out there with a bazillion different types of upgrade parts, just as many as there are AEGs. But yeah, I mean, if you want something from what, and again, not an expert here, I've heard issues lately with KWAs. For the most part, they're decent designs, but they, like, a lot of them have weird hop ups. Some of the parts are weirdly manufactured. I guess they have some internal intricacies that are a little bit funky.
Really? Huh.
Less popular. Yeah. TM's pretty much always going to be a solid bet. Some of them are less capable of handling propane right out of the box than others. I think for the most part, the ones that you see in the States these days are pretty much all, like, new in the States these days, are pretty much good to go out of the box on propane. But yeah, they're going to be accurate, reliable. Maybe not. They might be plastic, just because they're TM. So the quality on, like, the actual or the I guess, like, the feel and, like, the versamultitude of them might not be as good as some other brands that are all metal, or metal where they should be, rather. But they're going to be a safe bet, just like their AEGs for the most part, but a little bit more expensive. So there's that side of it too. KJW, yeah, middle of the road. I mean, they'll put BBs downrange, but you might have reliability issues, things like that. A lot of these things that people see as reliability, it's just a quick side point. Another thing that people see as, like, reliability issues, like leaky mags, stuff like that. A lot of that isn't necessarily the fault of the gun. Like, there are some just like any pressure bearing system, there are more maintenance requirements than there are on, like, an AEG, which isn't constantly holding any pressure.
Right.
You need to lubricate. Do not just spray. A couple things, actually, because there's maybe I know we love myth busting around here. So, one, you do not need to add silicone oil to propane when you put it in a magazine. In fact, do not do that. It is actively detrimental to the performance of your gun and does not provide any significant lubrication. Oils, for the most part, are not good lubricants for metal on metal contact. Oils are good lubricants in situations where there's not going to be a lot of movement. In situations where there is going to be a lot of movement, you want things like, other way around. They're decent in situations where there might be some movement and you're not necessarily, but it's a closed system where the oil is not going to be able to escape it. If you have something like a GBB where it's a slide mounted on a rail, anybody that's put oil into a GBB will immediately be like, will know the feeling of, like, you're cycling a couple mags through it and you'd be like, wow, there's oil all over the side of this gun. Correct, because all the oil that you just put into that sealing surface has now exploded out of that rail and just is now all over the frame of your gun and not providing any lubrication whatsoever. Useless. So what you really want, and the same exact thing will happen in like the gas, like the chamber on a gas gun. That oil is just going to escape. It's going to soak into the O-ring. It's going to go somewhere where you don't want it. What you really want to use are greases. That could be things like Super Lube, which comes in like a little gray tube. You can find it on Amazon. I personally use Molly Lube, which is made by Dow Corning. It's an industrial grease. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's like nice on your O-rings, provides great sealing, lasts for friggin' ever, which is really nice. And that is what you want to be using more than adding silicone oil to your magazine or to your actual mags, because that's going to, one, attract. It's going to constantly be feeding oil into your gun, which is, again, like, conceptually okay, I guess. It's going to be spitting oil all over the place, so that's not good. It's just going to get all over the thing. But that's also going to attract dirt because there's going to be silicone oil in your barrel, so dirt's going to just latch onto that and stay there. That's also going to put oil into your hop up, which is going to make the hop up not work at all. Also, certain rubbers are negatively affected by silicone oil. So they'll either soak it up and swell, or some will actually degrade in the presence of it. Really just a bad idea overall. Use things like silicone oil very sparingly and in very select locations. And definitely do not add it to propane. You can use dry propane just fine. Cool little maintenance aside.
No, that's great.
I'm going to plug my team's YouTube channel a little bit,
Please
and maybe
do.
we can put a link somewhere in here, because actually, and it's not even my video, it's Ross's video. He's the GBB guy. Put a great video together about GBB maintenance. It is.
What's the exact title? I think I could update the stream description in real time.
I don't remember. But yeah, no, great. Again, it's really rock solid video that gets into the specifics of what you should be using and where.
Airsoft Green Gas Maintenance Guide from about 6 months ago. Yeah, perfect.
Does the job. And I'm sure there's a million other ones out there, not just my team's. But yeah, no, there's a lot of misconceptions out there about lubricants, and from an engineering perspective, and don't put them in your propane. Size of it. A lot of green gases, also like green gas, if you buy it in a can, also contains silicone oil, which is kind of annoying, but I mean, yeah, not much you can do about that, really.
Right. Just threw the link in the description. Cool. Obviously, I could broadcast it here, but it's not clickable. The Airsoft Green Gas Maintenance Guide. Airsoft Green Gas Magazine Maintenance Guide. I have not been drinking for over 2 days.
And for what it's worth, that also applies to things
Enterprises,
like duster gas
YouTube.
mags.
Let's check it.
So, yeah.
Repeat your last. I'm sorry.
That also applies to things like duster gas, CO2, same sort of deal for the most part. Oils in general, avoid them for the most part, again, outside of very specific situations like closed systems. So, yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm mechanically deficient in so many ways, but that's even I can wrap my head around that, and that was a nice.
Or in situations where you don't care where they go,
lesson, yeah.
Like cutting oil, for example, because all the place cares.
Right, yeah, that's his job.
Yep.
I was gonna bring something up before we got off on that very good tangent. I don't know what it was. Where were we before that? Do you remember?
Good brands of pistols, reliable brands of pistols, things like that.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think we covered that pretty well.
Again, sorry, I can't provide a lot.
No. Okay. So we've bought a. No, that was you had damn near 5 suggestions from what I recall.
For that reason, actually, one quick thing, just thinking of reliability, I have never been a huge I don't love the GBB maintenance stuff like that. I've gotten better at it over the years, but that's not something that I really like doing that much. So I actually recently I have transitioned over to using a CO2 pistol as my primary secondary. My primary sidearm. But historically, I've used AEPs a lot, and I do really like those. They don't shoot far, they don't shoot hard, which is fine.
What you want most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, for me, reaching out to 50 feet, A-okay. If it's shooting 230 FPS, whatever. They are very reliable. The batteries don't last a super long time, but who cares? It's a pistol, you're not really using it that much. The magazines are large in capacity, even a magazine that takes up as much space, or that takes up the space in the gun of a single normal pistol magazine, flush with the base, can hold 30 rounds, which is great. That's between 10 and 15 more than a GBB version would, which is nice. They also, for the most part, all AEPs have some sort of extended magazine you can get for them that's essentially a mid cap. I mean, I've actually, my Glock is the one that I used, and it was a Glock 18C, and they had extended magazines for it that held 90 rounds, which is fantastic. You really can't argue with that at all. I mean, if you have the space to actually carry one around, yeah, that's great. And again, that's literally a mid cap. No maintenance, no real extra maintenance or anything like that. So, primo.
Right. Yes, I guess you could argue that that's a fairly underrated place to start.
I agree. Strongly agree.
Because they're not rare either.
Definitely underrated. No, not really. I mean, they were for a time, but I think now they've had a bit of a resurgence. A couple companies have started making them again. The only downsides there, they don't have blowback, which can be kind of a ball buster. The blowback is fun. I mean, I can't argue with that for a single second. They feel like a cheapy plastic airsoft gun, if that matters to you.
Right.
Obviously, that's a thing. You're
All the better
generally
reason to get something better down the road. But I mean, if you want
yeah,
to fuck
exactly.
around,
Again, if that, but if that's like
games.
for me, that's not a problem. I mean, I'm not like I like guns, obviously, but I don't play airsoft to have like exact replicas of real firearms. I know that there's a lot of people that are into that, and I don't
Right,
judge it whatsoever. But that I don't really care. So, having an all plastic pistol is not a problem for me.
right, right.
The other thing is you're much more limited, and this does matter. I do like at least to like how they look and like what model of gun I'm using. You are way more limited on what models are out there in terms of APs. The only one, and most of them are not too. This actually this can be more than just a visual problem. Most of them are not to real spec because they need
Right.
to fit in like things like a battery and stuff like that. So they might be slightly oversized. I think the only ones that are even really close are Glocks. Those tend to be fairly close, still a little big, but fairly close to real spec. Like the 1911s, high kappas. Shoot, I think there's like a couple M9s out there. USPs. Though all of those are way like lumpy in places they shouldn't be for the most part. They don't like when you're looking at them for like a second, you're like, oh, you don't really notice it. But like if you go to buy holsters for it, that can be a real problem. No, like a
Oh, it's that
1911
much,
Serpa
huh?
holster is not under no circumstances is that going to fit a 1911 AEP ever. Like you couldn't even modify it to make it work. So that's something you
Right.
want to consider as well. But other than that, I really do. I think AEPs are a strong option that not a lot of people consider. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I did remember a topic we hadn't touched on yet, but we kind of inadvertently pretty much just did now, and that is your propulsion mechanism versus obviously vis-a-vis 10 years ago. Things have changed a bit as far as green gas versus CO2 versus AEPs versus you have springers versus springers. What I'm mostly thinking about is the fact that every fucking CO2 gun on or CO2 pistol on the market now actually shoots within a reasonable field limit.
Yes, that has
Wasn't the
changed a
case for a
lot.
time, correct?
No, definitely not. For a while, CO2 pistols. There were for quite some time CO2 non-blowback pistols that shot preposterously hot. They're essentially converted BB guns for the most
Right,
part.
right.
I think there's not a lot of them out there. Like even the wind gun revolvers, which used to be like the grade A example of like you'd have somebody show up with one, and you'd be like, "Sorry, man, that you're not gonna be able to use that." Nowadays, they pretty much there's like a low power version of like basically all of those out there that shoot at normal field limits. My primary pistol that I use right now is CO2, and it shoots completely reasonable FPS. So
Right.
yeah.
So I mean, it's in a certain sense, there's really no time like the present to be jumping into
True.
airsoft pistol ownership. As I said a decade ago, it was a little bit of a different story, like so many other things in the sport.
Yep.
As much as I want to call it a sport,
It's now to the point where a lot of people are actually running pistols as primaries. Like that's a big thing with speed softers.
yeah, makes you go faster.
You can actually HPA pistols now, like
Right.
with a hose.
Now at that point, you're
weird.
required to get a metallic purple receiver, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And carry your mags in a hoodie.
Purple. You have to have a dye mask, I believe.
Right. The dye mask must be right. Yeah, that's. Well, I thought at a certain point they sort of like BioShock Big Daddy themselves into those.
Yeah, I think you
with
might
like a hot glue gun.
I think
and
you
they
might
just live out of it forever.
I think you might just grow one.
Oh,
like
I
at
thought
a
about
certain
that.
point. Yeah. I'm not really sure. So, but yeah, no, that is the thing. If you're a crazy person, you can do that.
Like a next step in evolution. Yeah. Fascinating. As I said, we did sort of inadvertently cover a lot of it. Was there anything else to say about what in your pistol makes the BB go? You talked about proper usage of propane/green gas. You talked about how CO2 is actually valid now. Springers and AEPs are arguably criminally underrated. Are there any other flavors out there? There's not really much by way of EBD pistols, right?
gas, but that's like really.
Oh, right, yeah.
I mean, like you're not getting it. Like, I mean, if you're to the point where you're buying a gun that uses duster gas, you probably know what duster gas is. But I guess just to cover it, duster gas is typically HFC 134A, which is a refrigerant. It has a lot lower pressure than propane, which is propane. Green gas and propane are the same thing. For anybody that didn't know, green gas is basically propane that has like fragrance added to it. It's literally the exact same thing. They have the same vapor pressure. They all perform exactly the same. There are different gases out there that are like higher pressures, but those are not propane. Those contain additives and stuff like that. Duster gas is you would literally go and buy a can of like spray duster, pop the top off, and they make little adapters that you can squeeze on there. Japanese guns use duster gas. because Japanese airsoft has very, very low energy requirements to comply with their laws. They have to stay below 1 joule for all of their airsoft guns in terms of energy. So they have very low
I'm not
power
even making the
requirements.
joke anymore.
It's right there. You could make it if you really wanted. I said the word. But so they use lower power gases, and for the most part they use duster gas. Over in Japan, you can just buy it in same cans like you can green gas. Over in the States, if you buy a duster gas gun, you can go to Walmart for the most part, and as long as you can verify that it says on the can HFC 134A as the actual propellant, good to go.
I've also heard it referred to as R134A. Might a can say that instead? Okay,
Yep,
exact same
100%.
stuff. Yeah.
Good call.
For our
Yes,
purposes anyway.
Point. Oh, kind of fun little aside, and I have this problem with all the duster, because I have one gun that uses duster gas. And because people abuse duster gas as an inhalant. So the problem with that is people are getting high off of duster gas. They add a bitterant to duster gas now in the States, which sucks.
Like denatured alcohol. Yeah,
exactly. It literally the problem is that bitterant is it like condenses, and it gets like really, really strong because like when you fill an airsoft gun with any kind of refrigerant gas, you actually want to get a substantial portion of the liquid propellant in there rather than just having gas. So you concentrate all that bitterant inside of that inside of the gun, which sucks. So as you're shooting it, and like if you fire your gun a lot and you start getting liquid that's coming out, like you actually like frost up any part of the gun or the magazine or whatever, like you're firing the propellant out of the liquid propellant out, that will be all over your gun, and it will be, you might not notice it, but it will be all over your hands. And if you touch anything food related after doing that, and you will taste that shit for like a day and a half. It sucks. So if you're using, and check, because they usually say on the can that it has a bitterant in it, wash your hands after you're done gassing up your mags and after you're done playing airsoft, and do not eat after handling that shit. It sucks. Only had to have that happen to me one time before I was like, I'm not doing that again ever.
Right.
It sucked. Absolutely terrible.
Oh man, I thought it was one thing to get enamel paint on your hands.
Yeah. And wash your hands quite a lot because it's kind of difficult to get off.
Right.
But yes, that's duster gas.
All right. Well, it looks like it was a fairly quiet one today, and that's just fine because we are shifting towards the Brent for content being recorded anyway. I think that's about it, especially as we just eclipsed an hour. Anything else major at all? Any interesting? We didn't really do our 45-minute opening segment this time. So any interesting projects going? Or?
We covered the beer. Is there anything like?
We could do book club with Mike's next appearance. He's indisposed.
Yeah, there we go.
Something went down.
In terms of projects, I'm just learning how to code, so I'm getting into Arduino. That's fun. I have a couple projects in mind with that. I just finished, and hopefully in the next couple days we'll be uploading. Anybody that follows the Explosive Enterprises Facebook page, we have now had a Thingiverse page if you're interested in 3D printing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I put up some files for some 3D printed light anti-tank weapons. They work really nice.
Yep.
And I'm going to be putting up a tutorial video and kind of like an overview of the design about.
All you for a second. I'm going to put these links or the rest of these links in the description. Your gas video is already linked, but yeah.
Excellent.
Proceed.
Yeah. So we got a couple. Well, I'll be putting up a video on a build tutorial on that thing. Again, just hopefully we have more stuff to add to our Thingiverse page as well. So going forward, we should have some fun projects to do there. Yeah, no, that's pretty much it in terms of like weird and interesting stuff that we've been doing lately. So, yeah.
Very well. Trying to find you on Thingiverse. How exactly
new Casterkins? I like the new Casterkins. Hot take. There you go. Has there been like any negative? Have there been any negative opinions of the new Casterkins? I think they look fine. The only I don't like in the new guard set, I like Ursula Creed. She looks great.
Fair enough. I'm trying to find you on
Testicles look
Thingiverse.
good.
Can you send me a link or like what am I type? Can I type in a user?
Type in XE15. That should bring up at least that should bring up
Dash or no?
Yes, XE-15.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think the only thing I don't like in the new stuff that they
Yeah, because if people
Yeah,
aren't,
no, I
not
mean,
many
like,
people know this, but this is a miniature wargaming podcast as well.
now it is, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, no, I could like it sucks that like because the Castricans, I mean, they were like a staple. I'm amazed that they stopped selling those models and giving them rules for as long as they did. Wild. But yeah, no, it's cool that they're coming back. The only thing I don't really like in that new kit is the Sentinel. Not a fan. I like the old one. Not the old one. The one just prior to this, where it's a little more angular looking. That like bulbous. It doesn't really do it for me. But yeah, no. Again, I like Ursula Creed. The new command squad looks cool. Word on the street is that we're getting full squads of catechins, which is great.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, and they're busting out new. I think they're expanding on Deathcore as well. So I think the two main.
That stuff's still all just Forge World, right?
No, actually, there is a as of last summer there is a single. Yes, the kill team set. So there is a plastic basic troops of that, and then the rest is Forge World. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No Sentinel. Yeah.
I'm looking at it now. No, I haven't seen
Plastic Creed and Plastic Castricans. It's like, sweet, love it, totally in.
Yeah, I get what you're saying though. That's again, it's the way a lot of stuff is trending, but that Sentinel almost looks like something out of like the Ascent.
Yeah,
the Castricans themselves are pretty cool
really
though.
Super, like I always think of 40K as like kind of like diesel punk in terms of how the aesthetic is. Yeah, I just don't. Sentinels and I love Sentinels. Actually, I'm 3D printing an entire Elysian army. And drop Sentinels are Sentinels are by far my favorite Imperial Guard vehicle. Possibly one of my favorite vehicles in the 40K universe, just because I just love the idea of them. Drop Sentinels are sorely underrated, and I have several. I'm printing an entire squadron of them because I think they're dope.
Are they still in the rules, or is this just you're talking about the?
But they are. They actually have what they're calling Legends rules, which are like. Like they wrote like a big set of rules in like 2019 for a lot of like out of production models that they said they're going to be updating very infrequently. So yeah, they theoretically can be fielded at a points level. Are they super balanced? Not really. They're kind of overpriced, but yeah, they're neat.
Right. Okay.
Good time to be a guard player. Yeah.
Those new Castricans look pretty cool, and then very definitely different from the Scions, which again
100%.
look totally race outside of Horus Heresy.
Yeah, I don't like those. Don't like any of the. Yeah, don't like any.
Can you still get the old Stormtroopers if only through like Finecast?
No. Nope.
Really?
Officially, no. They're a bazillion on eBay, but no, you can't get them.
They're not in particularly high demand, but okay.
Nope.
Well, I won't say they're not in particularly high demand. The one with the plasma pistol and the bolter, spotless, mind, but spotless, brand new. I paid $35 for before before COVID prices really hit hard. Yeah,
fair enough.
eBay special. I might even come from the. I don't even think it. No, I don't think it came from the UK either. I'd have to know my price history. But like, yeah, I really wanted that. That was one of my fall. That was my fall 2020 projects.
There you go.
When I finally finished my Aquila terrain too.
What? Oh, yeah. So I mean that with the catechins again, there's like rumors that they're going to get a full release. Which if the new ones that come out are anything like they did
the command squad.
They did a new slide like recently. There's been 3 new catechin models that have come out over the past couple of years as characters. There was there was definitely a company commander that looked like oh my God, black guy from Predator. Jesus Christ.
Oh yeah.
Carl Weathers. Yeah,
that one. Yeah.
Who basically was or whatever his character.
I didn't know if you were talking about like
what the fuck is the character's name? It starts with a D. Whatever. But yeah, no, that looked like him. That looked fantastic. Absolutely primo model. There was I think it was a female company commander. I'm not sure what she was supposed to be. It was like
with the bolter,
either a company commander or like a sergeant. Not really sure.
Right.
And then there was a new Sly Marbo.
Yes, that are
all of them look fantastic. So like if that's anything like what the new set would look like.
Yeah, Marbo being the only one of those that you can get right now for like
I
less
think
than
that's true.
eBay collectible prices, right?
Yes, I think he's actually for sale on the web store. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, the other two were like store anniversary models.
Yes.
So yeah, harder to get for sure.
Right. Yeah, I got excited and thought you meant like 2 or 3 things beyond those. I'm like, oh, wouldn't that be? Maybe there is something to this.
Yeah,
I mean,
sadly.
I like to think about things like this. Like, how far? I mean, they've probably made new molds at some point, but like even whenever they did that, how far past making their making their initial startup costs back do you think the molds for the fucking OG Catacon sprues are?
Oh, I mean,
I am within chord range of a couple of those models. Let's see what kind of copyright dates we're seeing on the bottom of the bases. You guys ready?
So bad at this point. Like even the ones that are the heavy metal models that they have featured on the storefront look like dog shit. Like those, they're just the molds are just elderly.
Yeah, I mean,
it's awful.
It's workable when you're running orc hunters and can cover every seam in shoulder pads, but
and do 9,000 different conversions. Yeah, fair enough.
Here we go. Oh, yeah, one of my first models here, GW 99 is the copyright of the base. Now, older bases have always been known to get thrown in kits that are not.
Oh
that
yeah,
old.
That's probably not the best.
Okay, I bought these fucking things in 04.
Right.
03, 04. So I mean, what are we talking about here? A couple years difference.
When your sculpts are old enough to drink, you know that the molds are pretty worn out.
Yeah, I grabbed 4 at random. The only that one actually didn't come out bad at all for a tester's special.
Yeah, it doesn't look bad.
I don't know. He might have Dark Angel's green pants. I can't tell. Let's see if we can get this.
The lighting is completely fucked off your camera, unfortunately, but it is.
If only I had a light right above me. I just don't want to turn on.
It just refuses to focus.
Anyway, that's why we have photography cameras. All right, John's got a hot take. The new Cadian Shock Turbos is goofy as hell. It's the old 2005 Cadian sprue with all the seam line defects for making sprues out of a 15-plus-year-old model.
Oh yeah, it is. Well and truly. And then they charge $20 more for it.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the new.
All the upgrades, like the new sprue, like the upgrade weapon. I mean, thank fucking God that they're just offering the weapons now. Like Jesus Christ, how long has it been? But yeah, no, all the new stuff that's on the new sprues looks great. Like all the new plasma gun, like the new sniper rifle, all looks very good. But they're still using the same ancient fucking molds for the Cadian, like the legs and the torsos. It's like, what the fuck? Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, at what point are you gonna?
Yeah, and
do
then, like,
something there.
They feature what also I really don't get is like they prominently feature in both the fluff and the art female Cadians in female Cadian armor, and then they're just like, okay, we'll just offer you can just put a female head on the male torso. Like, would it have really been that hard to make a slightly differently shaped breastplate? Come on.
Yeah, what's the third party that does all the different ones?
Yeah, Victoria Miniatures does fantastic. Not pulpy or stupid with huge boobs or anything like that. Just really nice.
Yeah, they do both for and for everything too. They're I can't believe it's not Mordians. You can get us.
I can't believe it's not Mordians. They have Cadians. Cadians, Mordians.
Kind of, sort of Valhallans, I think.
The Tanith, I think, or no, not Tanith. What the fuck were the old Scots? There was a faction way back when. But yeah, no, they have pretty much everything you could think of. Salvar Chem Dogs. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Female and male versions that are all great.
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I should get a box of their stuff for our next Shadow War campaign. Because I don't know if I want to run. Because
at
the same time, I have all kinds of. I mean, it's not like I'm short on ideas on that front. I was even thinking about an Inquisition list where I just ran my Stormtroopers as, because everyone can have one. If I don't want to run a gunline list, I would actually have a kill team wide special rule on the way my guard list really doesn't. And 2, everyone can have all kinds of fun gear.
Didn't Bill have some interest in actual kill team?
I think he has the book.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, we should. I'll see if he's around. I'll see if he's on tonight. Sometimes I harangue him with our links because he does generally find a little bit of the stuff interesting and chills out in the chat. Right. I'll tell him we'll do miniatures hour afterwards moving forward here.
Yeah.
Just talking about another friend of ours we do miniatures hood shit with. friend of the show. What else? What else? What else? Yeah, I'm still fucking around with maybe doing Skitari for the next one. Okay, yeah, the new kill team is fun as hell, and that's good to know coming
Haven't
from you, like
Heard
coming from you
decent things,
genuinely.
haven't touched it.
Okay, here's my deal breaker. Is it truly all like pre-made lists? How far have you looked into this?
Not very, but I don't think so. Pretty sure
Okay.
it's free.
That's reasonable. I mean, I cannot fathom like them making that because, like, I mean, even if it's just completely.
I think when they say like here's an intercessor kill team, I think it's like they give you like a set of. It's still like a set of units, but like the intercessor kill team is more like an army basically, and you can like that's like a rule set that has like its own special rules, or sorry, an army list that has its own special rules, and then a bunch of different units you can take within it. John might be able to elaborate more on that.
So not entirely. Yeah, I'd have to. I would have asked.
Yeah, I haven't actually read the rules yet.
Like
so
tutorial.
The new ones. I did the 8th ed ones, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah, in 8th ed, no, it was freeform building this building. So yeah.
Okay, yeah. As I said, I mean, even from a sales standpoint, I cannot fathom why this would be like the worst idea. Like, okay, what if you're? Do you think it's going to be like 10 times easier to sell people one box versus allowing them to make a list of different units from your factory? Okay, entirely reasonable. All right. Some are more or less limited. Okay, that's again also reasonable. Balance is balance has to be a thing.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I'm curious now. I mean, not that we don't have enough miniatures projects, I might actually get painting a little bit here
for me because I can just
right. Yeah, but it's not like we have to. It's a matter of okay, someone get the rules. Well,
yeah,
I'll commit a Saturday to go to YouTube University. That would even be a fun like Discord hobby session idea. We all just
I mean, it's nice. It's nice having kill team is good because it's like you can have you can have an honest to god fully painted army and only have like 10 models.
Yeah. Not to mention an actual engaging
it's also
game over the course of a few hours.
Yeah, sure enough.
But yeah, so Adeptus Titanicus is a thing.
You're
we're covering everything tonight. And War Master Titans are pretty badass. We should do those.
The only thing that I'm still like a little sad that they haven't added anything but the Imperial factions. But yeah. I would like some Stampas.
Is it exactly epic sized? I forget.
No, it's slightly larger, as I recall.
Okay.
I think epic was 6. These are 8.
Okay, you're right. Yeah,
which is like noticeable.
A complete non-factor if we're just buying bootlegs.
100% printing. Yeah.
Nobody went with any classic knights?
No. No, don't know anybody.
Cool. I might, so I will keep you apprised. So maybe for small scale 40, small sized model, larger scale 40K hood shit, the just jumping into, I'm sure there's some fan made spinoff of Epic at this point. That might be the move to check out, versus committing to portraying Horus Heresy conflicts and with Titanicus, which is fine. The models are freaking cool.
Or you could, or crazy thought, you could play old Adeptus Titanicus, which did have orcs and squats.
Oh, okay. So this was like an Aeronautica situation where there was a precursor rule set. Okay, I thought it was just like the new.
Yeah, no, there was Adeptus. I think Adeptus Titanicus might have been before Epic, actually.
I'm okay.
Yeah,
I remember now. You know why?
I believe Epic was a modification. I might be getting this backwards. I think Epic was a modification of Adeptus Titanicus, where they added in other units that weren't like Titans.
Right. Well, no, John, you make a great point, and that's always a good time. But like, here's the thing: is we can. I mean, at the fundamental level of experience, either Titanicus or Epic is the apocalypse experience. But when you set up your table, there's still room to drink.
This is true and very important. I find.
And let alone can muster an army in a weekend and have it painted well
and not spend $5,000 on it. That said,
2 Imperador Titans.
If you do want to set up some apocalypse games, I do have a Stampa and a Gargantuan Squigoths. So I do have 2 Titan units that I could field. But yes.
that you could shrink with your 3D printer into Epic, right? You can just
I could.
like a collapsible.
That would be entertaining. Yeah, if I played
like
Epic,
a like a Transformers
I could have
like
an
a Transformers toy you
Orcheosaurus.
could really get your mileage out of.
Yes.
You know? Just there's our $1 billion idea, but miniatures that transcend scale, not in like an abstract sense, but like you can literally use them for the large and small version
Correct.
of a given rule set. Not that
Yeah.
many franchises besides 40K have like an Epic version and a kill team and 12 spin-offs.
True.
A few get close though. War Machine.
Is there a small scale War Machine?
Well, it has like Titan equivalents.
Oh, that's fair enough.
No, there's no. I mean, no smaller scale in terms of model size.
Yeah.
I guess smaller scale is the most objective way to say that. But yeah, that's like the next biggest one as far as like different rule sets within a given umbrella. I mean, you want to get into Star Wars, Godspeed, but
yeah, fair enough. Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
because that's just more of a a little more eclectic, and that there's shit going. You have the games are a little more separated, if one will.
Yeah.
I don't entirely know what I'm getting at there, but so yeah, minis are a thing too. Maybe we'll do maybe I'll take a weeknight off just for the sake of the marketing genius of doing like Miniatures Monday streams.
Oh my god.
We'll just go down the road. We'll just go for like 4 hours.
What do we call it though? Can't be Broken Gears. Broken Sprues? No.
Well, it'd be like the occasional one-off show under the Broken Gears umbrella. We wouldn't. There's no need for a separate channel yet.
We can have a different. No, it doesn't have to be a different channel. You just have to name the show something different.
Miniatures Monday. Yeah, it's the most. I'm sure no other stream has come up with that yet.
Broken Brushes. Boom. He's
okay.
Done.
Yeah.
See?
Congratulations on your new marketing.
You just have no imagination. Come on.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I didn't get a chance to grab any booze before I headed down, so.
Fair enough.
So.
Very important.
All right. Well, we're closing in on an hour and a half. I think we'll close it up there. Any closing thoughts? See, the same word technically alliterates with itself, so I'm in line with the theme here.
Yeah, nothing occurs to me. I think we pretty much covered it.
Cool. All right, everybody. Go ignore this and spend $300 on a handgun, even though you only have $150 left on your credit line.
God bless.
But this is obviously not financial advice because you're past that point if you're into
like
airsoft.
A good
anyway.
red-blooded American.
Right.
Overdraft for sidearms.
Right, yeah, and then take out a cash advance with your other card to pay for it.
Hell yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, good luck out there, everybody. We'll see you for the next one. Should be a big one, episode 10, Tom. Not counting
something special.
Not counting a couple test streams we took down. So really, but real episode number 10.
What are you talking about?
No, they didn't. The first one in the height of winter Omicron when I was out drinking in the garage, so I could also smoke, freezing my ass off, and we still went for like 2 hours. That was funny.
Hell yeah, those were the days.
Yeah. It's in some sense they really were, which is fucking terrifying. But yes, we will see you for what should be. I have no idea topic wise what we're planning yet, but it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, whatever we think of.
We'll see for the next one, which will be a good one. Unless we don't, in which case we will see you in hell. Good luck out there.